Right. So in this video, I will be sharing with you, what I've been going through as part of my story. So welcome back. This is the Infinity Midwife coming to you once again. So we're gonna quickly jump into what I needed to bring to light as it regards to the last video I did, right? I was sharing with y'all about my sexual trauma when I was a younger girl. Now, mind you, the trauma did not happen back home or in a foreign country. It actually happened in a very modern westernized country where there are rules and where there are laws and where these type of acts are punishable. But I feel like because I grew up in a certain environment, in a certain culture, people are really low key when it comes to molestation, incest, whatever have you. And in my case, it was a family friend that took advantage or that abused me. I'm going to speak for me because I'm not the only person in that situation, but I will be speaking of me solely because it's my story that I'm sharing here and no one else's. So I feel like the way that people or that, the adults dealt in coming into knowing that there was molestation that happened on younger children in their environment, they didn't do much. There's, I don't know if it's a belief or people, like I said, like people have a hard time dealing with wounding, whether it's emotional wounding, spiritual wounding, physical wounding, mental wounding. People are, especially like in our Black communities or African communities, there's just this big silence around wounding. Like, wounding is not something that is talked about. Wounding is something that just happens, and then we get to move on to the next, right? So I feel like it was probably a way of doing that helped us overcome, or probably like built our resiliency. But I feel like is no longer working. Like, people, like, we need to come out of the closet. We need to talk about those type of woundings, whether it's mental wounding, whether it's emotional, physical, psychological wounding. Like, these conversations need to be had, because we're not like our parents. Our parents dealt with things differently. It was in a very secretive way. It was not dealt with. Actually, it was just not dealt with, okay? Somebody died in front of you. You probably was traumatized, but nobody was going to come and help you overcome it. You would just overcome it, right? Or you would maybe just not overcome it, but you wouldn't talk about it, or there was no addressing the situation, whatever situation it was. It was just, it's part of life, let's move on, right? Kind of thing. It's part of life, let's move on. But I feel like with things like sexual abuse, mental sexual abuse, all types of abuse, I feel like it has something that has been really, really deeply rooted in our culture, especially the African culture. And I feel like now is the time that we need to release ourselves from these bondages, from the secrecy, from these things that held us back, and that is holding us back from living our best life, from becoming, blossoming communities and stepping in our greatness. Because I feel like as a people, we are carrying so many burdens, psychologically, emotionally, even spiritually. I feel like we carry burdens that aren't ours to carry, or that has it was like a curse, somehow. So going back to my story, I said that I was molested from probably the age 3 to probably 8 years old. I can't really recall exactly when it started and when it ended, because again, when you're young, you don't really pay attention to certain adult ways of doing. You don't really consider, like, you're not really there to judge. You're just there to be, right? A child is there to be. So however the adult is gonna act around the child, that becomes its new normal, right? It becomes, oh, okay, well, that's how an adult is supposed to be around a child, and that's how a child is supposed to be around an adult, kind of thing. And so when you grow up with these concepts, with these beliefs, well, then, like I said in the previous video, you embrace it, or you reject it, or, you try to hide it. And in my case, I tried to hide it. I completely dissociated from the memories of being molested. I've completely dissociated from it. It took actually about 30 years. It took me like maybe 2 years from today. So in 2020, I started having memories coming back, resurfacing, and I started questioning them. And I was like, why do I feel like I've been molested? Why do I feel that way? And I would go around and talk about it to my sister, to my siblings, talk about it to relatives, to family. And they would all oh, what do you know? What do you remember? Type of thing. They would be very on the defense. And it was even like, why are you going back there? Type of thing. Like, why are you disturbing us with that? Why do you so much want to see, or why do you want to uncover this? Like, can't you just move on? That's what I got from my moms. My moms was like, stop wasting time in the past, just move on, right? But I feel like when you don't know where you're from, where you're coming from, who you are, what your experience has been, there are missing pieces to the puzzle for you to be whole, and for you to step fully into the knowing of who you are and what you've been through, and then healing all the things that you need to heal from your past, so that you can become a better individual in the future, right? Or even in the present moment. So I feel like there was a lot of that when it came to addressing those memories that was coming up for me, And I feel like a lot of people know this. They've known this, like whether it was cousins, adults, uncles, aunties, a lot of people, like even the parents. Like my dad passed away. Even when I tried to talk to him about this, like, he was rejecting the idea. Like, he was like, no, like he was denying it. Same with my mom's. So I feel like a lot of things, like in our culture, a lot of things are secretive, and they're meant to stay that way until the dying days. Like, you go to your grave with your secrets, type of thing. And I feel like that is not healthy. That is carrying burdens. That is carrying, that is bringing more karma to the lineage. And I feel like, no, it needs to stop. And I'm doing the work this time to bring a voice to these secrets, and to have them be in the light, so that we can actually start healing and then moving on, because we're not really moving on. When you have your parents and your relatives letting you know, like, oh, well, I don't think this happened, or you're probably imagining things, or leave the past in the past and move on, like, I feel like is not healing, right? Like, it is not targeting the issue here. It's just tossing it under the rug, and try not to see the big pink elephant in the room, but it's there. Like, what? Are you gonna close your eyes? Are you gonna really let the elephant in the room take up all the space? Like, it's already I'm already choking on this big elephant taking up all my space. Are you going to look at it as well? Are you going to address it, or you're just gonna shut up? You know what I'm saying? So I grew up with a very diluted identity, self-awareness. Like, I think I was a very happy child. And I know for a fact that when I started going to kindergarten and being, I would laugh a lot. Like, people would just come and touch me, and then I would laugh. But my laughter was exaggerated. And even my mom she remembered this. She's like, oh my God, at some point, you would laugh for nothing. And all of this laughter, to me, in hindsight, that was me communicating something that was not to be laughed about, but that was the total opposite, you know? And I feel like, you know, like in our communities, like there's not much support when those type of things happen. Like when a child acts a certain way, there's no one to be there to assess. There's no really like educators or no awareness around these type of things, because they're like, oh, okay, the child just laughs a lot, okay, so let's just, you know, let her do what she does, and then, you know, let us, you know, even a bit like judge her and tell her like, okay, you're exaggerating here. But like nobody's gonna dig deeper and find out what are the underlying reasons for her to be laughing at everything and anything and exaggerate her laugh, right? Nobody's gonna dwell on that. Nobody's gonna pay attention to those things. But those type of cues, they are telling you something is wrong, but nobody's gonna is gonna look at it that way, right? So growing up, there was a lot of things I denied myself, because I felt like in my environment, my truth was denied. The fact that I was molested as a young child, that fact was denied. That truth was denied. So therefore, I grew up with a lot. I was carrying a lot of a feeling of unworthiness. I felt so unworthy because I felt like, first of all, my truth was denied at a very, very young age. I felt like my innocence was taken at a very, very young age. I felt like no matter how much I tried to be or to do, I felt like I was never enough. Because again, I felt like I was unworthy. I was unworthy of being protected, of feeling protected. I was unworthy of safety. Like these things didn't matter, because in my environment, they were clearly telling me like, we're denying you your truth. We're not going to protect you in it. And we're just going to allow you to grow however you want to grow. And that's just going to be it, you know, call it a day. And so I invite you guys to look into your environment. Like how did the adults deal with the traumas in your life? Were they caring? Were they holding space? Did they bring you to a specialist? Did they have you, you know, checked? Did they have you, you know, like, was there some sort of follow-up? In my case, none. So I did grow up on the idea that I had to overgive of myself in order to feel loved, in order to feel valued, in order to feel accepted. And I felt like I was just rejected by my whole environment. I felt rejected by my parents. I felt rejected by my aunties, my cousin, because again, in the message that I received by me going through this trauma, this sexual trauma, is not that important. I felt like I was unimportant to those people's eyes, to the people that mattered around me, because I had great love and I still do have love, but it's just not the same, you know, now that I'm grown, you know, like I can have distance in this type of love that I still want to entertain with some relatives that I still hold dear to me. But I feel like there was a lot of rejection. That denial that everyone was carrying related to that trauma that I experienced, that denial within it, in and of itself, was reflected back to me that I was not important, that I was not worthy of being saved, I was not worthy of being secure, protected, and that, you know, it didn't matter. Like, you didn't matter. What you went through didn't matter. And that person that did that to you actually maybe had a right to do it to you, because, you know, you look a certain way. You are appealing to certain men. You have a big, like, your physical body is done a certain way. You know, your ass is how do you say this? You know, you trigger people, kind of thing. And that's what I grew up upon. Like, I was perceived as the one that is seeking for attention, the one that wants to do everything to get the attention. And that I was really in that space where I felt like I had to overdo, overgive, be over serviceable to people, be over willing to help people, be overdoing. And that has kept me in that space because, again, not that I was recalling that trauma, Mind you, I had hidden it in some space in my brain because I didn't want to deal with it. But all the repercussions came out. Like, I was totally diluted in terms of having boundaries. What was a boundary for me? I had no freaking boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had no boundaries. People would do whatever they would want. Like, they would talk bad to me, and then I was like, oh, probably I said something, for them to tick them off, or like I was being treated unfairly, but yet, I would internalize it like a child would, and then I would look at myself and be like, shit, I'm not doing the right thing, or maybe I should do more, or maybe if I do this right this time, this person is gonna like me, and I felt like I was just giving, overdoing, giving, and it added up to nothing until that trauma came back resurfacing. And that's when I realized, okay, I have been hurt. I have been hurt when I was a child. And that's why I was kept in that pattern, in that cycle of wanting to overdo, overgive, because I never felt worthy enough. You see what I'm saying? So there are layers to this. Okay, you guys? So that's part of my experience growing up a little bit, having to deal with, these insecurities, these deep-rooted insecurities, this deep fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, because again, it was bringing me back to my original sin, original trauma that I had not picked up on until in my early or mid 30s, right? So again, I want y'all to reflect back on whatever situation you've been while growing up, or whatever wounding you grew up upon. How did you deal with it? How did it unfold in your life? What patterns did you started developing because of that original sin, that original wounding? How did that took you out of your path? How are you, always doing, or how are you taking yourself back out of the equation? How are you bringing more wounding and suffering to yourself because you felt so unworthy of love, right? So I'm going to leave it there for you guys, something to reflect on. I will be back with you on the next video, okay? Yes, you guys, we are in this together, okay? Leave y'all comments, or, whatever it is. I'll be back in the next video to share more. Take care, guys.